out. Once again, that number 1-800-STAY-OUT. Hey, FAB is back in the building. Welcome back to one Matthew Broder. It's great to have you in the building.
So excited
brother.
to be back.
Hey, let's rock, man.
Let's
hey, you
rock.
know what? It is the Woodward Pistons segment, so we got to get the legend drum rolled in here. Hey, Cody, if you don't know, brother, we do the drum roll for the legend Rod Beard. Not just a great professional, not just a heralded professional, but he's a great person as well. Let's rock. Hey, yo! Shout out and welcome to the legend Detroit News, Rod Beard. And you know what? You got to kick things off with Rod's thoughts.
I mean, my thought is an easy one for today. It's getting Coty Davis on board. I feel really good about it. When he did his interview, he had like a notebook full of story ideas, Piston story ideas.
Wow.
We're like, wait, what? How do you have a list of ideas already done? So I think he's going to really jump in here and bring a renewed energy, some focus, and a different mindset from out of town that we haven't seen. So I'm really happy to have Cody here.
Hey, and definitely, Cody, welcome, brother. Definitely happy to have you here as well. Can't wait to meet you in the media room. It's going to be an epic season. I kind of looked up and realized preseason starts in about a month and a week, a month and a half, maybe. That means that training camp is just weeks away. It's going to be a dope time, man. Can't wait. And the media room is dope. But, hey, any thoughts before I ask you a couple questions here?
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you guys for having me. I'm thrilled to have an opportunity to cover the Detroit Pistons for the Detroit News. And I do want to say this, and I know I might get killed in the comments section. I understand that this has been a rough time for Pistons fans, but from the outside looking in, I guess I could say I'm in now, but from the outside looking in from afar, looking at all of the changes that the Pistons made this offseason, I do believe that this is going to be a very encouraging, a very optimistic season. I love the move that the Pistons did. They got new voices in the office, on the coaching staff. And to be honest with you, I understand this is a franchise that won, combined 32 games over the last two seasons. This young core is still pretty good in my opinion, man. So, the fact that they added veterans and the fact that, I'm pretty sure, I can't wait to meet these young guys, but I'm pretty sure they're almost like the Rockets, is to the point that they're tired of losing. I think this 2024-2025 season is going to be a good one for this organization.
Welcome to the room, Cody. Welcome to the Rod is not a liar. I can tell you that, man. Rod, knower of good people, man. Hey, and listen, shout out to another person. I don't know if you got the opportunity to meet him yet. Omari Sankofa and my guy Bryce Simon of the Detroit Free Press and the Pistons Pulse podcast. They're able to talk to, I call him one of the NBA kind of greats as it relates to analysts, Keith Smith. And he actually believes that the Detroit Pistons in this year actually have the perfect recipe to potentially make the play-in game. Because you got a deep draft. You have some teams that are kind of in that middle that are going to make the decision to plunge. But you got a Detroit Pistons team, like you stated, is tired of losing, man. What do you think about that? You, from the outside looking in, you've already seen this with Houston. You saw them kind of go through their renaissance. The Pistons and the Rockets, Ron and I covered this thing 2-3 years back, were at the same level. And then they made some decisions to bolster their young core with some veterans, brought in the right coach, made a few tweaks to the front office, and then boom. We're hoping that that's what we're seeing with the Detroit Pistons right now. You spoke on a little bit more. Do you mind elaborating?
Yeah, and I believe so. And look, I know a lot of people are going to hear this and think to themselves, well, of course, this is just an outsider just trying to be positive, because he's on a new beat, which that might be true to a certain degree. But the only thing is, I've seen this covering the Houston Rockets. I mean, when I started covering the Rockets, I was only around James and Russell Westbrook for a little bit. By the time they started letting me come inside Toyota Center and being around the team and just revamp themselves, they tore itself down. You brought in some young players, some promising young players. And last year, I watched this organization, unfortunately, departed from Stephen Silas, but you brought in Ime Udoka, who brought a very good dynamic and a very good voice, a new needed voice to that organization. You had young guys like Elpy, Jalen Green, Jabari, Tari, all of these young guys that was tired of losing. But the biggest thing that the Houston Rockets did, they brought in veterans. Fred, Dylan, Jock Landale, Jeff Green, those 4 veterans was an additional coach for those young guys. And I literally watched the beginning of the season was a little bit rocky, but after the All-Star game, that's when you saw this Houston Rockets team take off. And I don't know how much you guys saw the Rockets after the All-Star game, but it was that time in March where they won like 10 to 12 games in a row. And even before that stretch, especially when Jalen Green just went like Kobe Bryant 2.0. I don't know what got into him in the month of March. But even when you had an opportunity to see these young guys take that leap, remember before Alperen Sengun got hurt, there were several times where we used to talk to him during practice and after practice. He used to say, man, Fred and Jeff Green, they're on my behind. Same thing with Jabari, same thing with Jalen. And to be honest with you guys, at first, I was like everybody else, you bring in veterans, they're not going to make that much of a difference. But being around the Houston Rockets last year, especially what Fred and Jeff and Jock and Dylan brought to their organization, what they brought to the locker room, it changed the whole entire vibe. It changed the outlook, and it helped the Houston Rockets get from one part of their rebuilds to the next phase. And then when I'm taking a look at from what the Detroit Pistons did when I was still in Houston, now I get an opportunity to cover it in person. I truly believe that the Pistons will have an opportunity to take that step. You brought in a new head coach who I think is really good in JB Bickerstaff, and you got some veterans, some really good veterans like Tobias Harris that's going to come in, and we're going to see them have that same impact inside Little Caesars Arena, just like what I saw last year inside the Toyota Center.
Hey, let's go. I'm going to kick it over to Flannel real quick, but just there was a couple different things that you stated that looked like direct parallels. Obviously, the Pistons are finally going out there, and they got those types of vets that we believe are going to help this young core and actually play, not be injured, which is something that the Houston Rockets did. We saw them move on from a coach that probably was not fit for that job in Silas. We see the Pistons right now moving on from Monty and bringing in a coach like a JB Bickerstaff, similar to Ime Udoka, who has been known to coach up and to develop and to be able to have good success taking teams from nowhere to somewhere. And that is JB Bickerstaff with this Detroit Pistons team. So I see the parallels, man. And as with a name like Detroit Kool-Aid, I'm definitely in on the optimism. I definitely am. What up, though, Flannel?
Hey, Cody, you mentioned about how guys like Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet, how they had an impact on a rising star like Alperen Sengun in Houston. What type of impact do you think a Tobias Harris, a Malik Beasley, a Tim Hardaway Jr. will have on our own up-and-coming star, Cade Cunningham?
I think it's going to be the same. And the one thing that I started to notice last year, and I also saw this when I was covering the Houston Texans as well, when you have a veteran that's well-respected, they can actually bring out something more in your young guys. And what I mean by this, look, we all, been raised by our parents and stuff. And our parents can be like, hey, don't do A, B, and C. You'll listen, but you kind of get tired of that voice, and you're still going to do your own thing. But at the same time, when you have like an older sibling or a favorite cousin or, one of your best friends that's telling you that same message, now you're going to listen a little bit more and it's going to register, and then you're going to have the opportunity to take that next step in life. It's just like that in sports. I literally watched Jalen Green, being told by whether it was Silas, whether it was Ime Udoka at one point. Because at one time, I ain't think Udoka and Green was going to make it. But, them preaching, the same, don't do this on the court, do this on the court. Wasn't really registering it. But once I saw someone like Dylan Brooks, once I saw somebody like Fred VanVleet telling Jalen to do the exact same thing, now it's coming from a peer. Now it's coming from somebody that's like, oh, it's a different voice. Not only is the coach telling me this, but my vet is telling me this. We saw him take that jump after the All-Star break. And I truly do believe that it's going to be the same exact thing when you take a look at the teachings that Tobias, Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., the teachings that they're going to bring inside their locker room. It's going to help somebody like Cade, Jaden Ivey, Jaden Duren, like Asar Thompson, like just having that additional voice, especially veterans that not only wants to come to a rebuilding organization, but they want to be part of the change. That is where the difference is definitely going to be.
Man, you know what? That right there is the word. The fact that they wanted to be here, Tobias Harris, Beasley, they all spoke about saying, you know what, we love the vibes. They spoke to their admiration of a guy and a leader like JB Bickerstaff, as well as the fact that they're like, no, we know that Trajan Langdon is that dude as well. Rod, we've talked about it a lot as it relates to kind of one voice, and is it going to be Trajan's front office? And so far, so good. Before we kind of wrap up the segment, there was one kind of less heralded, I think mildly celebrated, but everybody appreciated it, player that I think has an opportunity to play a big role. We're talking about all the different young players. Reed, now a Piston after being waived by the cap-clearing Philadelphia 76ers, is a mobile switch defender who hoards blocks and has graded out as one of the most prolific steal mavens of the last 4 years. Man, I love the fact that Hughes is that great of a writer. But the 25-year-old's worst percentile ranking in steal rate among bigs since joining the league, 85th last season. In addition to ending opponents' possessions, Reed extends those of his own team. There aren't many better offensive rebounders in the game today. Just for our audience, for our Woodward Pistons and our Woodward Sports audience and our Wake Up Woodward audience, just break down a little bit of what you know about Paul Reed as well. The impact you think he'll be able to have with this squad.
Me or Cody?
Hey, we'll start with you and then get Cody's perspective as well.
So if the way that it's looking right now, who is Paul Reed playing next to in the front court?
Duren?
Isaiah Stewart? In that second unit?
In the second unit, yeah, Stewart.
In the second, so if you got Stewart, and we know what Stu is, and you got Paul Reed, who's going to be that same type of versatile, switchable big, I mean, that could be something. Depending on how the rotations go and who you play them with, what the combinations are, I think you could have more of a defensive group. Let's say Asar Thompson is in that second group. You got an almost all defensive, and as soon as I say almost all defensive, people are going to say, well, who's going to score the ball in that group? You figure it out. So a lot of this, the talent that's there, part of the issue is going to be JB figuring out who plays with who, how do we get that balance of offense and defense. But you see some combinations there where you can have a lot of different looks that you throw at the other team, where you're going to go heavy defense with your bigs, your guards are out there scoring, you have three-point shooting available to you. I think Paul Reed is going to bring some intensity that maybe they didn't have last year in that second group.
Hey, definitely. And Cody, man, hey, let's get your thoughts and your words on Paul Reed, Detroit Pistons backup four.
He's part of the reason why I think the Pistons definitely going to take a leap in their defense next year, especially considering, like Rod just said, you have a head coach that's in the JB Bickerstaff who's definitely going to, it's going to be up to him to figure out those rotations to see who works well with somebody. However, you're also taking a look at the fact that he's coming to a team with a head coach like JB Bickerstaff, who is known to, elevate the defensive talent of almost every single team that he has been at the helm of. And look, Paul Reed, I consider him one of the best, I would say underrated defensive players in the league, but I definitely think, coming here to the Detroit Pistons, knowing that, of course, without a shadow of a doubt, I think he's going to have a bigger role. The Pistons will definitely get the better version of what he's going to have an opportunity to bring to the court.
Man, listen, the optimism. I'm loving it. Pistons basketball is right around the corner. Thank you for joining us. Coty Davis, Detroit News Pistons beat writer, and Rod Beard, as always, the legend, Detroit News sports editor-in-chief. Man, you guys bring the heat. Rod, you got one, bro.
Hey, he will light you up. He got some info, and he's already done his homework. He knows what's going on. Hey,
any last words from you? Either of you?
No. I think it's what you said, that we got a couple more weeks before we get to training camp, and I'm just excited again to see how some of this stuff starts shaking out and the decisions that they're making, and just what we see from the players and what they've improved with over the summer.
Yeah. Hey, awesome. Can't wait to be in the gym with you, Cody. It's gonna be an awesome time. Thank you guys both for joining the show. You guys stay tapped in with Detroit News. As always, they got great writers, great people over there, great reporters. Thank you guys for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you guys.
All right. You too. Appreciate it, guys.
Hey, man, awesome time with Rod Beard as always. Let me tell you about something else. Now more than ever, it is critical for you to have your insurance reviewed. Switch.